Hey, it's Thursday, and that means we got fight predictions to do. Means I'm breaking down a UFC card, and it's a pretty good one. We get a quality main event, Josh Emmett versus Ilia Topuria. We got a meaningful, even if it is like not super fun to break down fight between Amanda Hibosh and Macy Barber in the co-main event. We do have this weirdly placed like heavyweight fight between Justin Tafa and Austin Lane, third for the top, but like this is the standard. UFC is always going to put heavyweight fights way too high on the card and with way too much prominence. And that's kind of all there is to it. And following it down, David Onama, Gabriel Santos, that's fun. Brendan Allen, Bruno Silva. No idea why Neil Magny versus Phillip Rowe is on the undercard. That makes no sense to me. Honestly, I'm a little confused why even Randy Brown, Wellington Terminus. But hey. And further down, we got Gillian, Robertson, Tabatha, Ricci. I enjoy both of those people a lot. Jamal Emmers versus Jack Jenkins. That's a good fight. And honestly, the gem of the undercard. Tatsuro Taira versus Clayton Rodriguez. That is magnificent. And then even the opener, Cody Brundage versus Cedric Dumas. That's a good fight. I have a lot of kind of hang-ups about Dumas, but we'll get to those when we get there. Let's start at the top here. Josh Emmett, Ilia Topuria. In the end of the day, I'm taking Topuria. We'll get that out of the way right here, right now. TKO. Emmett's a little bit fragile. He's 38 years old. He's getting older. He has a style of fighting that doesn't really ask a lot of complex questions of Topuria. But I'm going to say this right now. If Josh Emmett goes out there and bombs on Topuria and knocks him right out, I'm not going to be surprised because there are two things about Topuria that I do not like heading into this fight. Number one, he's incredibly dismissive of the danger Emmett presents. And you know what? That's par for the course. Fighters are going to talk it up and talk about how, no. This is my time. This guy doesn't present a problem for me. We're going to do it. But he does it with such conviction that I do kind of worry that he actually does believe that. And maybe preparing in accordingly. That's dangerous. Emmett's got the power to knock anyone out. He's got that nuclear option. Part two is the fact that Ilia Topuria's defense can look very, very, very good in a moment. His head's moving. His footwork is breaking off, not going backwards in straight lines. His guard is active. His general, all the things that you do to not get hit are present. And then at other times, particularly after he gets hit, it goes away. He stops focusing on it. He starts to kind of brawl, sort of go shot for shot. The head becomes stationary. The chin gets up. The hands are not where they should be, defensively speaking. And it's not so much that his footwork becomes bad. It's that his retreating footwork and defensive footwork goes away. And all of those things could lead to an absolute brutal KO at the hands of Josh Emmett, because the only reason it has not resulted in a knockout is the fact that he has not faced a lot of big hitters. The biggest hitter he's faced is probably Jai Herbert. Jai Herbert's not a massive hitter. Not a small hitter, but not a massive hitter either. And also, not for nothing, Jai Herbert was actually doing some really bad things to Ilia Topuria early in that fight. And it was just Herbert's own fragility that prevented that from continuing. And when Topuria just kind of stepped on the gas and went in there and destroyed him, that was when it was done. Could he do the same to Emmett? Maybe. Emmett does have a lot of fragility to his own game. And like I said, 38 years old, getting old for a weight class that you get old quick in. And his striking is very alpha male in the sense that it is not complex. It is not nuanced. It is very much hitting you with a sledgehammer and getting away with that because you hit really hard, really explosively, and really fast. I will say this, though. coming into this fight, like, it's been very clear that, like, the community as a whole, the fandom as a whole, really dislikes Josh Emmett, and I don't know why. I get people think he shouldn't have gotten a title shot against Yair Rodriguez. I get people thought Calvin Kattar beat him. I get people thought that a number of other, like, close decisions should not have gone his way. I know a lot of people think Shane Burgos beat him. I think there's a fair number of people that think Dan Ige beat him. But that's not his fault. That's incompetent judging. Also, the only one that I think there's an argument that he won all of those fights. Taking the Kattar one, because Kattar is the one that I feel the least good about. It was the fact that, like, over 5 rounds, Kattar won 2 rounds very clearly, and 3 rounds were toss-ups. If all 3 of those rounds go to Emmett, he wins the fight. But it does feel like, scored as a whole, Kattar won the fight. So, like, I get it, but that's not his fault. And I don't know what he's done to deserve this. What he has actually done. Because what do you want? You want him to be like, no. Calvin Kattar beat me, therefore I don't get a title shot, and theoretically my biggest payday and my highest profile fight that I've had in my entire career. Like, that's kind of ridiculous. So I do really love the hate. Another thing to mention here is that this is probably the first person Topuria can't out-wrestle. Like, they're both good wrestlers, but, like, Emmett is a very, 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 very good wrestler. And that's the thing that I think probably will be with him for the remainder of his fighting days. So that's another question, is that Topuria does not have what has historically been a blanket for him to utilize, a security blanket for him to utilize to win fights. Topuria is the minus 400 to minus 330 favorite. That's a little sharp. I would have gone more like 250 to 300 myself. So I am tempted to lay down a little bit of money on Josh Emmett at plus 255 to plus 300. But we'll see. There is one fight on this card that I guarantee you I'm betting money on. But we'll get to that later. This comes much later. Amanda Ribas versus Macy Barber. I've never been big on the Macy Barber train. I've never gotten on board. I've never been choo-choo. Let's go. Don't get me wrong. She's a 25-year-old woman who has a lot of time to advance her career and improve. She's a beast. She has all the physical requirements and the mental requirements in a large way, because she is pathologically aggressive even when she's getting kind of lit up. Like there is that fearlessness, that confidence that is there to go with that physicality. I just don't like how she's developed. I don't like the coaches she's elected to guide her through this, Team Alpha Male. Her general mentality is also just sloppy as heck. She fights messy and generally requires a massive physical edge to actually beat her opponents, because if we pull up her list of opponents she's beaten, they're almost all just not on her level as an athlete. Andrea Lee, main problem, not an athlete. Jessica Ai, on her level as an athlete, I guess, but a similarly messy fighter who is much, much, much older. What is the age gap? Barber is 25. Jessica Ai is 36. So yeah, 11 years difference. Montana Del Rosa, very much not an athlete who has, done what she's done strictly through solid foundation. Not even solid foundation, because actually Montana Del Rosa's game is all built all kinds of wrong. And then she had that split decision against Miranda Maverick that I do not think she won. And I don't fault her for that, but she didn't win it. And I can't look at it as a win. I can't break it down as a win. And then the loss to Grasso and Modafferi. She beat Gillian Robertson, which is probably her highlight win, but it's a stylistic matchup that works for her. And then wins over Hannah Seifers. I love Hannah Seifers, but I've said numerous times, absolute bottom of the barrel for this division at a UFC level. And JJ Aldridge, who, again, struggles with athleticism. Ribas is an athlete. She's an incredibly powerful athlete at strawweight. The problem is, this is at flyweight. But she's still a physical force at, 125. She's generally outpowered people, and it took craft and skill and veteran savvy for Caitlin Chukagian to beat her. And I think, could be wrong, but I think that's her only loss at 125. Is it not? Yeah, I'm right. Her other losses are at strawweight to Poliana Vida back in 2015 and Marina Rodriguez. A lot of what Barbara wants to do is kind of more like what Vivian Araujo likes to do. And maybe a more physical version of it, but a less tactful version of it. So I'm going with Hebos. She hits hard. She works well on the counter. She's reasonably creative as a fighter or as a striker. She's a good grappler. So even if Barber does do her standard bowl you over into the the grappling exchanges, the fact that Barber is a sloppy grappler, and Hebos is actually a really good one, could pay dividends. It goes to decision, which does worry me. Hebos can slow down a little bit, and Barber won't. Barber's got a gas tank. But yeah, I do have Hebos. I thought Barber would be the favorite, and I was like kind of looking forward to this fight as maybe like, hey, I can make a little bit of money off this. Stunningly not. Hebos, I've only found it minus 195 to minus 210. Barber plus 152 to plus 170. That's a do not bet. There's a lot of questions about Hebos. If Hebos was the same size as Barber, I would take her without reservation. But she's not. And that's the problem. Justin Tafa versus Austin Lane. Let me get this out of the way because this is not a very deep or thoughtful breakdown of this fight. Austin Lane has amazing athletic ability. Dude is a guy who spent, I think, 7 years in the NFL with the Chicago Bears, Detroit Lions, and Jacksonville Jaguars. And, is big. He's light on his feet. He's got good power. He's explosive. He has all of those things. All of those, all of those things that we say about essentially anybody that comes from the NFL. But he's breakable. He doesn't like getting hit. He's not comfortable. He's not comfortable with an opponent that just has the speed or the size to hit him back. He's 6'6". Tafa's only 6 feet tall. There's a reach difference of 6 inches here, 80 to 74 in Lane's favor. Maybe he can keep it around the outside. Maybe he can utilize his reach, his speed, and his athletic abilities to win this fight. Maybe. But I fully believe Tafa at some point will hit him and that he will not like it in any way, shape, or form. Taking Tafa. I don't see Lane's footwork and range-keeping abilities to being good enough. This is a guy that got knocked out by Greg Hardy. Greg Hardy's huge. Greg Hardy hits hard. It's not a problem. But if you look at all of his fights against people who just are big hitters, Lane kind of crumbles. And I've got Tafa by TKO. Tafa is the favorite, minus 175 to minus 188. And Lane is the plus 138 to 150 underdog. I fully believe that Lane will actually be winning this fight up until getting knocked out. I just think he'll get knocked out. David Onama, Gabriel Santos. I really like Onama, and I want to pick him in this fight. He's athletic. He's got heart. He's got a fairly complete game, actually. But there is a massive X factor hanging over his head, a massive axe, if you will, executioner's guillotine. And that is, he was a James Krauss fighter. James Krauss got busted on the whole, essentially fight fixing allegations, insider training allegations, whatever you want to call it. And his gym got banned. Assumably Onama's moved somewhere else. I can't figure out where. And I think that there's going to be some hiccups, some growing pains for him as a fighter. I think in the long run, it's a good idea because I was never a big fan of Glory MMA and kickboxing, or MMA and fitness, pardon me, and James Krauss' couching. I just never had it. It has nothing to do with maybe he cheated on his wife with Megan Anderson. Maybe he cheated on his wife with Laura Sanko. Maybe he knew something about Tim Elliott's wife fiddling around on him. The fight fixing allegations and everything else that goes with, all of that, behind the scenes bullshit. It's not that. I just never thought he was that good of a coach. And it was kind of weird because his big claim to fame was Onama being good. Onama is a freak. He's a 5'11" athletic featherweight. He's going to be good no matter where he goes. It was like getting Tim Elliott to calm down. That's an achievement. That's a hell of an achievement because Tim Elliott used to be like a spastic idiot. But still, Tim Elliott was a good fighter before he got there. Jeff Molina was kind of his product. Pretty decent fighter. Mired in his own problems right now. And then like Brandon Moreno. And the thing to me was that like Moreno was with him for a very, very short period of time. Everything he was doing beforehand, he just kept doing. And sure, maybe Krauss has some like tactical insights that made him better. I don't know. Maybe he did. But I never got it. I really never got it. And in Gabriel Santos, you have a guy who gave Lerone Murphy an incredibly difficult fight. Arguably won it. He was incredibly impressive in his debut. He is himself a pretty good athlete. He's 5'9". He is going to be 3.5 inches shorter in reach. It's 74 to 71.5. But he's got comparable physical gifts to deal with Onama, and he's a way more fluid striker, grappler, and so on. Like he's a more natural fighter, a more seasoned, a more refined fighter. He's just at a higher end of the evolutionary ladder of his career than Onama. And Onama, whether it was Krauss's like, fight fixing again or a lack of killer instinct, I don't know. But he did lack an instinct for pushing for the big moments. And Santos doesn't lack that. Santos is a big moment machine. You give him an opening, he will take it and he will widen it and he will make it into, I don't know, the width of a football field. Keeping on with the Austin Lane puns. It should be a really good fight. I think this is the fight of the night on the main card, honestly. But I got Santos by decision. I think he's got the big moments. I think he's got the more unpredictable skills, the more refined skills, and I think he's more adaptable than Onama is. He's a minus 225 to minus 245 favorite. Again, I thought I might be able to sneak in a bet here, and I can't. Onama's plus 175 to plus 190. I mean, I could bet on that. It's not wide enough that like I wouldn't bet on Santos at minus 225, but it's wider than I want it to be. Brendan Allen versus Bruno Silva. I feel very uncomfortable picking Allen fights because there are moments when he looks like the future. He looked amazing against Andre Muniz and Krzysztof Yatko. But like he also had nip and tuck fights with Puda Soriano, Kyle Daukis, Sam Alvey until finishing him. And that Jacob Malkoun fight was, I watched it again and I still get like, I still am clutching my pearls there. He's a big dude. Like he's a 6'2" middleweight. He's a good grappler. He's a developing striker. It's coming together very, very nicely. Hits hard, takes punches pretty well, pretty creative. But then like sometimes he'll just be incredibly wooden. His wrestling comes and goes. It's sometimes world class and sometimes terrible. The only thing consistent about him is that he is a good scrambler, good grappler, opportunistic submission artist. That's always there. That is always there. But the striking and the wrestling are so damn inconsistent with him that it is hard to pick him. I'm still going to pick him here because Bruno Silva is just kind of dumb. Like he's a guy who did get tugged apart on the feet by Gerald Meerschaert. And what is Brendan Allen if not Gerald Meerschaert like 2.0? A guy who can strike, who's pretty tall, pretty long, deceptively good kickboxing, and good grappling. Silva does hit really, 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 really hard, though. Very hard. And is himself a pretty accomplished grappler. So we'll see. It's interesting. It's tough. But like if Brendan Allen fights up to what he can do, he can win a decision or even maybe get a tap out. Because, I mean, he did tap Andre Muniz, who I think is a better grappler than Bruno Silva. I could be wrong with that, but I do believe so. Maybe that's just Muniz running into Jacare Souza at the right time. I've got Allen as a minus 175 to minus 200 favorite. That's about right. Like that is what I would place this at. And Silva's a plus 146 to 165 underdog. So you could bet it. You could definitely bet it. But again, my disclaimer on the betting, never bet what you can't lose. Because this is MMA and things get weird. Undercard. Neil Magny versus Phillip Rowe. Why is this not on the main card? Because Neil Magny is the third highest ranked fighter on this card. Only the main event is higher than him. And that can't be right. That can't be right. I'm thinking about this now. Hibosh has got to be higher than him. Is she not? Athlete rankings 125, please. Yeah, Hebus is higher than him. Ninth versus... Okay, so fourth highest rated fighter on the card. And Phillip Rowe is an exciting, reasonably good prospect. Dude's been doing really well, although battling with some significant weight issues. I think the book on Magny is one of the most well-defined books in the UFC. He is a long striker with an amazingly energy-sapping clinch. Hard to win. He's a tough dude who doesn't really break, but does get finished. And, yeah. Is that what Phillip Rowe beats? I don't know. The thing that keeps coming back to me here is that, this is one of the few times Rowe's going to be facing somebody the same height as him. They're both 6'3". This might actually be the only time he's ever fought someone his own height. Let me have a look here. I know he's been taller than everyone he's fought in the UFC, but who's the tallest guy? So let's see here. 4 fights in the UFC, 3-1. 6 foot tall Nico Price. 5'10" Jason Witt. 5'11" Orion Koshi. And 5'10" Gabe Green. So yeah, we're talking about a guy who's had 3 to 5 inches over everybody in his fights. I'm just kind of worried that a lot of what Phil Rowe does is kind of just confidence driven by size. It's not that he has to be bigger or anything like that. It's just that his confidence and the way he fights and the composure he shows is almost always I know I'm the big guy and I can manhandle you a little bit and I can do my thing. And the other thing is, this is every Magny fight, I have zero confidence that he just avoids the clinch with Magny, because you don't want to clinch with Magny unless you can break through and finish him basically immediately. The dude is a leech. He actually fits the leech nickname way more than Jinlang, the actual leech. So I am going with Magny by decision. I'm open to being surprised. I'm open to something happening here. That Phillip Rowe is the next big thing. That Phillip Rowe passes this test with flying colors. I'd probably prefer it, honestly, just because the Magny journey is pretty played out. But I really worry about him facing an opponent that's just not going to kind of wilt a little bit to his size. Even Nico Price at various points of that fight looked uncomfortable with the size discrepancy. And Nico Price himself is a crazy man. And that was surprising to me. So, I don't know. It looks like I'm not alone here. Magny is a minus 162 to minus 180 favorite. Rowe is plus 130 to plus 145. Feels about right. Then we have another welterweight fight, Randy Brown versus Wellington Turman. I don't know why Turman's going down to 170. 170 has, I don't want to say infinitely better, because there's some number of it, but way better wrestlers, way better top game guys, way better scramblers than 185 has. And that was Turman's game at 185, and it will still be here. Could that work against Randy Brown? Yeah, I guess. We've seen Randy Brown take it down before. It's not that hard. But Randy Brown's got, increasingly better footwork to him and is a much better striker. Much, much, much better striker. I never feel good about picking Randy Brown, because he is kind of one of those, kind of like Bruce Leroy types, where it's you take this whole flow like water motif from Bruce Lee way too far, because he's just structureless in a way that absolutely bugs me. No, I don't like it. But he has 6 inches of reach. He has 3 inches in height. He is one of the few welterweights that is probably going to be effectively bigger than Turman. And he's got great athletic gifts. Turman's not super tough. He's been hurt a number of times by guys who are not even as good as Randy Brown. And I'm picking Randy Brown by TKO to just surprise him with speed. His technique, when it is, flipped on, is amazingly crisp. And it's a little bit like a Brandon Allen situation where, it really depends what fight you watch. But yeah, I got him winning here. He's a minus 225 to minus 265 favorite. That's Randy Brown. That's too wide. And Turman is plus 175 to plus 200. I'm not tempted. I'm not tempted to bet on Brown at that point. Matush Rebeski versus Loic Radzhabov. I'm not a big fan of either guy. For one, with Rebeski, it's just he's a 5'7" lightweight, and there's a ceiling on that. There's a big ceiling on that. 5'7", 66-inch reach, short ass arms. He's a very good wrestler. He's very, very physical. I have some cardio questions. I have some striking questions. His debut was against a guy who is just objectively not good. Objectively terrible, to be honest, because if memory serves, and watch me get egg on my face here. Yeah, no, it was Nick Fiore. I was pretty sure it was Nick Fiore, and I didn't make a note of it. And Nick Fiore got outstruck by Chase Hooper. So I am not impressed in any way with his striking. But what does Radzhabov do that is really going to fix that? Radzhabov himself has a remarkably short reach. 68 inches at 5'11". I don't get it. He's a guy who is pretty deliberate and slow-paced, very wooden striker, is kind of relying on making his wrestling be a part of the game. Not necessarily the only part, but his wrestling sets up his striking. Rebeski seems like a better wrestler. So I am going to pick Rebeski by decision. I have significant feelings that, he's got a ceiling headbutt coming up where he just hits the top of the ceiling and there's just nothing he can do. But he is the minus 150 to minus 160 favorite. Radzhabov is plus 120 to plus 130. It comes down to it is just that I don't think either of these guys is long for the UFC. Lightweight is a absolute lion's den of incredible talent, and these guys, I think, have significant physical limitations. Tabatha, Ricci, Gillian, Robertson. This is my underdog alert. Underdog alert, because Robertson, not much of an underdog, plus 100, plus 115. Ricci, minus 125 to minus 140. I am betting on it. I'm betting on it big because I'm picking Robertson to win by submission or decision. Okay. Let's be honest, though. Let me be honest for a moment here. My track record with Tabatha Ricci fights sucks. I have picked her to lose each of her last 3 fights. And essentially it was, she's really an atom weight. She's too small. These girls are fairly big. They should be able to just out-muscle her. And that did not happen. In fact, against Jessica Penne and Maria Oliveira, it was embarrassing how easy time she had. Polyana Viana, I actually I think beat her. So I contend that I was still semi-correct on that one. But she is too small for this division. And Gillian Robertson's coming down from 125, where she was a pretty big, strong threat. At 115, the girl's a monster. The girl is impressive. Don't get me wrong, she's still a bad striker. Still incredibly wooden striker. But Ricci's not a good striker. She's fine. Her striking leads into the clinch, leads into grappling exchanges, doesn't really have a lot of power on it. So she's going to tango with Robertson. She's going to have a Robertson-style fight. And there's not really anything I think she can threaten there. She's a good grappler. She's a very good grappler. BJJ black belt, judo black belt. I do believe. But she's smaller, and Robertson is a really good grappler. Really good. Betting-wise, I'm exceptionally happy that Robertson's the underdog, and I can capitalize off that. There you go. Shalgas Jumagulov versus Joshua Van, flyweight fight. Van is a late notice replacement here, basically. Was prepping for, I think, another fight. Got the call from the UFC. He's here. I like what I see from him. Like I like the creativity. I like the flashiness. I like the killer instinct. I like that he's a finisher on the Fury FC scene, which is not bad at all. But the level of the opposition has just not been good enough for me to reliably pick him in the UFC. His opponents have been 30-18 before fighting him. It's very thin, very, very thin. There's no standout fight that you need to go watch and appreciate him in, because it's all guys that, again, it's kind of blank canvas. You should be winning these fights. Maybe he comes out here and he just destroys Zhumagulov. But Zhumagulov is a hard-hitting dude, far harder than anything he's fought. He's improving, getting better and better as a wrestler. He's a good kickboxer. He's learning to fight at a higher pace. Because the big problem for Zhumagulov when he came into the UFC was it was too deliberate. It was too slow. It was too low output for the flyweight division, which is a high output division. And you have to be able to put a pace on people. And he slowly has learned how to do that. And he's repetitively lost incredibly close fights, but like, I don't know. I don't have faith in the structure and depth of Van's game. So Zhumagulov by decision. That's my pick. I'm hoping for a Van win, though. Because, number one, I really dislike the idea that Zhumagulov did the whole, I'm going to retire so I can go sign with Kataros promotion. That's a quick way to earn yourself all the bad will from me. And he's also got that stupid Patty Pimblett haircut. But no, I mean, he should win here unless Van is just much more athletic than I'm thinking he is. That would, I guess, be the idea. And then we go, oh my God, we come to this terrible fight. Trevor Peek, Chepe Mariscal. Neither guy is big enough for 155. I mean, Peek might be, but 5'9", 70 inches. It kind of fits in the Rebeski category if at some point you're just going to be too small. And with Peek, there's so many other problems here. And Mariscal's really a 145er. Was prepping for a 145 fight before this. Yeah. Peek is the worst technician I have seen in the UFC in a long time. This is the guy that makes CM Punk look like he knows what he's doing and is just unathletic. When in reality, CM Punk is unathletic and does not know what he's doing. He is amazingly bad as a technician. How he's in the UFC is stunning to me. How he's gone undefeated is stunning to me. And it just points to how good of an athlete he is, because he is an insane athlete that some coach needs to get locked in a room and break through the craziness and the Jesus logic, because he's a huge Christian, and figure out a way to get this guy to actually fight in a way that doesn't involve throwing hammer fists while standing. You know what the sad thing is? The really sad thing is? I'm picking him to win, because Mariscal, like I said, is a featherweight and is also not very good. Like, he is a better technician than Peek. There are some things I like about him. He has a nice right hook. He has, it's in straight lines, but he has good timing with his retreating footwork at the very least. But he doesn't seem super durable. Been finished 3 times. Graded by good fighters like Steve Garcia, Joe Anderson, Brito, Gregor Gillespie. That's a good group. It's a good group. It's a solid group. But the Garcia fight, even though it was a bad stoppage, is a classic example of Garcia would just go wild on him and start playing the bongo drums on his head, and he would go down, and he would have no way of avoiding, because doesn't really move his head, doesn't have a particularly good guard. His defense is, I back off and I hope that you reset and don't continue coming after me. And Peek is pathologically aggressive and has the confidence that only a man who truly believes that Jesus is invested in him winning fights can have. So Peek by TKO. He's a minus 105 to minus 118. I guess he's the favorite because he goes further in the negatives than Mariscal does. He only goes to minus 115. But it's a pick and fight. I'm mildly surprised by that because, like, I mean, Peak does have that, like, Contender Series boost and whatever. So we go from that fight, which is going to be a mess and going to be terrible, to a fight that I'm actually really, really, really looking forward to. Jamal Emmers versus Jack Jenkins. I missed a trick by picking against Jenkins in his debut against Don Sheamus. I was like, I'm just worried that he bullies really unathletic guys on the regional scene, and this is a guy that will bully back with a relatively large amount of physicality. And Jenkins is like, you know what you need to do? Shut up. Because I'm going to go out there and I'm going to break his freaking leg with leg kicks, and I'm going to show you what I can do, which is be a nasty, nasty fighter. At least at that level. And I'm tempting fate again. Because I'm picking Emmers. Because I really like Emmers' kickboxing to wrestling hybrid game. Dude kickboxes really well. He's also 3 inches taller, has 6 inches of reach. He's going to have some success from the outside, in my opinion. He's got a good jab. He's got a good kicking game. He's got a good combination game. He flows into the wrestling really nicely. I still have not seen Jack Jenkins considered a top-level athlete. Like, he answered, that he is above the level of a Don Sheamus, but Don Sheamus is not that high of a level of an athlete. And no one he fought on the regional scene really struck me as a good athlete. No one. And even the dude he fought on the Contender Series, Freddie Emiliano Linares, I mean, he went on to go and lose to another guy right afterwards. So it's not convincing me. And you know what? Jack Jenkins might have the last laugh on me yet again by going out there and breaking Emmers' leg and showing off his incredibly powerful leg kicks and doing his thing. But I've got to go with Emmers. He's a minus 200 to minus 215 favorite. That makes me feel better that at least I'm not alone. And Jenkins plus 163 to plus 175. Tatsuro Taira, Kleitz, and Rodriguez. Talk about two guys that are like really on the same pathway. Like when they came in, I said like almost the same things about them. Like these are supremely good athletes. They are really clean technical guys. I just worry about the transitions. I worry about the connective tissue because in Taira's case, it's a cultural thing. The Japanese fighters have tended to come in fighting at too slow of a pace and a little bit more janky, because they tend to train wrestling, grappling, boxing, kickboxing, all kind of separately, and it leads to like this game where they're actually pretty good at everything, but it doesn't fit together. And Taira has been like, you know what? That's not me, bro. I am actually really athletic. I am actually going to fight at a pretty reasonable pace. I am going to show you transitions from striking to takedowns that are going to blow your mind. And I'm going to show you one of the best back take games in the division. And with Rodriguez, it was kind of true. He is a stunningly good athlete. He is a guy who in any individual phase of the game is actually pretty good. Like I wouldn't say he's a bad grappler. I wouldn't say he's a bad wrestler. I wouldn't say he's a bad striker. I wouldn't say that he has really any like real technical gaps. It doesn't come together. And I do think that the pace that flyweight demands of him also makes him tired. And that's why I'm going with Taira by submission. Also, I mean, throwing a little MMA math here, they both fought CJ Vergara. Vergara got his arse kicked by Kleidson, but eventually did beat him. And Taira cut through him and took his lunch money. He did the Nelson Muntz of The Simpsons, give me the ball and your lunch money, and, took the win. So Taira is my pick. Submission, he's a minus 250 to minus 280 favorite. Rodriguez plus 200 to plus 215. Now, the opener is Cody Brundage versus Cedric Dumas. The irony is here is I think the UFC matchmaking has screwed up because they debuted Dumas against Josh Fremd, who Also was an early fight for Tresean Gore, who's a similar fighter in the sense that Gore and Dumas are both very good athletes who have fought basically no one, beaten basically no one, and basically have won fights by virtue of like, so I'm really athletic and you're not, so go away. And admittedly, Dumas' case is much better because he actually finished them, but it was very much about the other guy mentally breaking. And Josh Fremd didn't do that. And Brundage didn't do that against Gore. He went on to beat him. It's also the fact that Dumas does not wrestle well. His defensive wrestling, is bad. Brundage is, by 185 standards, a pretty good wrestler. He's got an NCAA background at a school I've never heard of, admittedly, but, still. He had a good record there. He is a wrestler. He is a guy who compares a lot to Fremd. He's not as tall as Fremd. I guess that's the one thing. Fremd is like 6'4", 6'5". So like he doesn't have that. He's only 6 feet tall. But Dumas doesn't actually have a really good range striking game. He's just tall and long and athletic. He's used to basically, instead of resetting at range and keeping you at his ideal distance, he just kind of blasts you. And on the regional scene, people just go away. They get hurt and they go away. Brunridge's not going to do that. Like I said, that's what it comes down to. So I think the UFC screwed up here because they want to make a project of Dumas. They shouldn't. Dumas is a guy with 3 domestic violence charges over his head and just bad juju with the fans after, not with all of them, mind you, but like with a lot of them when he asked a very small content producer to pay him for an interview. And I said this at the time, I'll say it again. Paying for interviews just ends up with boring interviews. I have never once watched an interview knowing it was paid and found it compelling. And I've never once watched a interview that I didn't know was that I went into thinking was not paid and found it compelling. And then I learned that it was paid, and it makes sense. Like it creates an awkward environment and energy that is palpable in it. You don't want to do interviews with a small show. Please go ahead and not do them. You're only at the end of the day hurting yourself because even the smallest show probably has somebody watching it that does not know you, that does not really know you, particularly because he had not even made his UFC debut at this point. He was really just known as the domestic violence guy, so any kind of goodwill would have been a good idea. But anyways, I don't like Dumas. I'm picking Brundage by TKO or submission. Brundage is a -175 to -205 favorite. Dumas is +145 to +163. I will be clear that there are only a couple things that Dumas has to get right, and he'll be like a killer. The problem is that the things that he has to get right are things that tend to take a long time and require a mentality that is open to change, and I don't think Dumas is. That's my read on him anyways. We've also got PFL coming up as well as Ryzen. I'll take a quick look at the Ryzen card. Hey, Kleber Koike Herbst. Picking him. Love him. Big fan. I don't really know the rest of these. I am sorry. I don't watch enough Japanese MMA. I do see some atomweight fights. I always want to watch more of them. But that's basically all I got. And over on PFL, quick picks. I'm going with Olivier Aubin-Mercier to beat Anthony Romero. I'm going with Sadabusi over Shea Mitchell. I'm going with Shane Burgos over Yamamoto Nishikawa. Magomed Kirillov over David Zawada. I'm picking Kirillov or Magomed Kirillov over basically anyone. That's a safe bet. Magomed Malatov over Naib Lopez. Clay Collard versus Stevie Ray. My gut says Clay Collard, but Stevie Ray does surprise me a lot. I was a big fan of Delano Taylor. I picked him to win last year, and then he let me down and like had that kind of laid a brick against Sadabusi. He's fighting Carlos Leal, so I'll be picking Carlos Leal. But like, part of me is like, I still want to be right about Delano Taylor. Natan Schulte versus Rausch Mafio, going with Schulte. Alex Martinez versus Bruno Miranda, going with Alex Martinez. They brought Solomon Renfro in. He's also fighting a dude who's not very good out of the Middle East. So I'll go with Renfro, but man, I've scouting for like UFC fighters. I've just watched him get his butt kicked like a lot, like Adam Fugit, Johnny Parsons, Mike Balot, all of them when they came in. He was kind of like my launching pad. And then we have Brian Zurcher, who is Mexican. I don't know him enough versus Mike Bardsley. I don't know him, and I don't know Abdullah El Kaitani versus Lamar Brown. I don't know them enough. Cedric Doumbé was supposed to be on this card. I was looking forward to that. Oh, Renfro's the replacement for him. It's not amazing, but like, again, if you've got ESPN Plus already, check out the PFL. The fights are generally fairly good. Olivier Aubin-Mercier versus Anthony Romero, that's a good fight. Sadabusi, Shane Mitchell, that's a good fight. Shane Burgos is exciting. Magomed Kirabov will probably easily handle David Zawada, but like, they're still good fighters. And Clay Collard versus Stevie Ray, along with Carlos Leal versus Delano Taylor, and Natan Schulte versus Rausch Mafio, and Alex Martinez, Bruno Miranda. Those are all good fights. Check it out. And if it wouldn't be too much trouble, down in the description below, most places, it might be to the left, it might be to the right, it might be above. There are some links to my Discord, social medias, other channels. Please check it out. And I'll wrap it up there. So enjoy the fights. It's a nice afternoon fight card, and I rather like them, although it does force me to not do live commentary on my friends racing, which I do enjoy, but the timing is good. I will see you guys later.